Jason had always thought of his alien friend, Lyra, as someone special. She was different from the other aliens he had met before. Her green skin, tall frame, and bright blue eyes were unique, but it wasn't just her appearance that made her stand out. It was the way she spoke, her gentle smile, and the way she treated him like a real friend. They had met years ago when she came to Earth for a student exchange program, and ever since, they had formed a bond that no one could break. One bright morning, Jason was going about his usual routine when he received an unexpected message on his communicator. It was from Lyra. He had just woken up and rubbed his eyes, thinking it might be another casual check-in message. But this one was different. "Jason, you're invited to my home on Zalaria. My mother, the Queen, would like to meet you." Stared at the message, his mind racing. Lyra's mother? The Queen? He had heard stories about her. She was a ruler of their planet, a being of great power and influence. Why would she want to meet him? He wasn't anyone special. He was just a regular human living an ordinary life. Didn't make sense. Maybe it was some kind of joke, or perhaps it was just a formality. But Lyra was never one for jokes. The message didn't feel like a joke. He looked at it again. The invitation was real. "Why me?" he typed back, unsure of what to say. A few moments later, the response came. "She wants to speak with you. I think you'll understand once you get here. It's important." Jason stared at the words important. He felt a knot form in his stomach. What could possibly be important about him? He wasn't royalty, he wasn't famous, and he definitely wasn't a political figure. He was just a normal guy who had formed a friendship with an alien from another world. He had never expected to be involved in anything more than their casual friendship. Despite the confusion and the growing feeling of unease, Jason knew that Lyra wouldn't ask him to come unless it was something important. She'd always been a loyal and thoughtful friend. If she thought this meeting was necessary, he would go. He trusted her judgment. He sent a quick reply. "All right, I'll come." Within moments, a small ship appeared in the sky above his house, descending slowly. He had seen this kind of ship before. It was a Zalarian vessel, sleek and shining, made for travel between the stars. His heart skipped a beat. Lyra's mother had to be someone of great importance to have sent such a ship for him. The thought of traveling to another world made him nervous. What was he about to step into? He quickly packed a few essentials, some clothes, his communicator, and a few other things, and then walked outside, looking up at the sky as the ship landed. The door opened with a soft hiss, and there she was, standing in the doorway. Lyra, as always, was beautiful. Her green skin shimmered in the light, and her bright eyes smiled as she waved at him. "Jason," she called out cheerfully, "I'm glad you're here. I've missed you." He smiled and walked over to her. "I've missed you too, Lyra. But I have to ask, why did your mom want to meet me?" "I'm just ... Well, I'm just me," Lyra chuckled softly and stepped aside, motioning for him to enter the ship. "You'll find out soon enough. My mother's reasons are always a bit complicated, but trust me, you're going to be fine. Just follow me." Jason hesitated for a moment before stepping inside the ship. The interior was just as stunning as the exterior, sleek walls, glowing lights, and advanced technology he had never seen before. The ship was like nothing on Earth, and it made him feel like he was stepping into another world entirely. Led him to his seat, and they took off, leaving Earth behind as they headed into the vast unknown as they flew through space. Jason tried to make sense of the situation. What could Lyra's mother want with him? He'd been to Zalria before, but that had always been casual visits with Lyra and her friends. Never had he been invited to meet the Queen herself. The idea felt so surreal. After what felt like hours, the ship finally entered Zalria's atmosphere. Jason looked out the window, mesmerized by the beauty of the planet below. The landscape was breathtaking. Towering crystal spires, vast oceans, and endless forests. Zalaria was everything Earth wasn't. It was alien, yet familiar in its beauty. The ship touched down gently, and they exited. Lyra led him through a winding path that took them to a grand palace, taller than any building Jason had ever seen. The stone was polished and gleamed under the light of the twin suns in the sky. It looked like something out of a dream. Jason's heart raced as they approached the palace doors. Lyra's mother, the Queen, was waiting for them inside. Are you ready? Lyra asked quietly, noticing the nervousness in his eyes. Jason nodded. I guess so. With that, they stepped inside. And Jason found himself face to face with the most powerful being on the planet. The Queen stood before him, tall and elegant, with an air of authority that could not be ignored. Her long, flowing hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her eyes, a deep violet, held secrets Jason could not yet understand. She looked at him with a smile that was both welcoming and mysterious. Welcome, Jason, Queen Marisa said. Her voice calm and steady. I'm glad you could make it. Jason took a deep breath, unsure of what to say next. He had no idea why he was here, but one thing was certain. Everything was about to change. The palace was magnificent, was more beautiful than anything Jason had ever seen, even in his wildest dreams. The tall towers stretched high into the sky, their sharp edges gleaming in the sunlight. Giant, colorful flowers bloomed in the palace. Gardens, their sweet fragrance drifting on the air. Jason couldn't help but feel small in such a grand place. As Lyra led him through the palace halls, he marveled at everything around him. The walls were made of smooth stone, polished to a brilliant shine. Strange but beautiful paintings and carvings decorated the hallways. Jason could tell that everything here was made with great care and respect for beauty and tradition. It was like nothing he had ever seen on Earth. As they walked, Jason's mind raced. What was this place? Why was he here? Lyra's mother, Queen Marisa, had said very little about why Jason was invited to her home. All she had told him was that it was important. But important for what? What did it have to do with him? Lyra must have noticed the worried look on his face. You're thinking too much, she said with a soft smile. My mother can be a bit mysterious, but you'll see, she means well. I hope so, Jason replied, though his voice didn't sound as confident as he wanted it to. The palace was starting to feel like a maze, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to find out what lay at the end. Finally, they reached a large open room. The doors were grand and made of shining silver. A pair of guards stood by the entrance, each with a serious look on their faces. As they approached, the guards stepped aside, allowing them to pass. Inside the room stood Queen Marisa. She was as regal and graceful as Jason had imagined. Her long silver hair fell around her shoulders, and her deep, violet eyes seemed to hold the wisdom of centuries. She stood by a large table, her hands clasped in front of her, waiting for them. The moment Jason stepped inside, she turned to greet them, a warm smile spreading across her face. Welcome, Jason, Queen Marisa said, her voice soft and calm, yet powerful. I hope your journey was comfortable. Jason nodded, but found it hard to speak. He was still unsure of what was happening, but he felt an odd sense of awe and nervousness. He had met leaders before, but none like this. There was something about her presence that made everything seem still, as though she commanded the very air around her. Please, sit, Queen Marisa said, gesturing to a large, comfortable chair. By the table, we have much to discuss. Jason hesitated for a moment before sitting down. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes fixed on her mother, her expression unreadable. I've been following your journey for some time. Jason, the Queen said, her voice smooth like velvet. You formed a bond with my daughter, and that is not something we take lightly. Jason felt a lump form in his throat. I didn't mean to cause any trouble, he said, his voice shaking. I'm just Lyra's friend. I didn't think it was a big deal. Queen Marisa gave him a gentle smile. You don't understand yet, Jason, but you will. She paused, her gaze turning thoughtful. Lyra and you share something special, something ancient. The bond between humans and Zalarian royals has been a part of our history for centuries. It's not something that happens often, but when it does, it is significant. Jason blinked, confused. What are you talking about? I'm just a regular human. I don't have any special powers or anything like that. Queen Marisa nodded slowly, as though she had expected this reaction. Yes, you are a regular human. But your connection with Lyra is unlike any bond we've seen in a long time, more important than you realize. Jason felt his heart Race. He glanced at Lyra, but she wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were fixed on her mother, a strange look on her face. "What do you mean?" Jason asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The queen sighed and moved to the table, where she placed a small, glowing crystal. It was the size of an apple, and it shimmered with a soft blue light. She motioned for Jason to come closer. "This," she said, "is part of an ancient Zalarian prophecy. A prophecy that involves a human and a Zalarian royal. The human will be a part of something much bigger than themselves, something that will change the course of our history."
Jason stared
at the crystal, feeling a chill run down his spine. "But I don't understand. Why me?" Queen Marisa turned to him, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that made him feel like she could see straight into his soul. "Because, Jason, your connection with Lyra is the key. It has always been the key. Now it is time to fulfill the prophecy." Jason opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He felt as though the floor had been pulled out from under him. Everything he thought he knew about his life had just been turned upside down. He wasn't just here for a casual visit. He wasn't just Lyra's friend. He was part of something bigger, something that had been set in motion long before he had even met her. "I don't know if I can handle this," Jason said, his voice trembling. "I didn't ask for any of this." Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I know you didn't, Jason, but sometimes things happen for reasons we don't understand. Sometimes those things are bigger than ourselves." Jason looked at her, searching her face for answers. But all he saw was a mixture of worry and determination. He didn't know what was happening, but one thing was clear. His life was never going to be the same again. Jason sat in stunned silence, his mind racing. The words Queen Marisa had spoken echoed in his head. Connection with Lyra is the key. But what did that even mean? How could a simple friendship with an alien girl lead to something as big as a prophecy? He glanced at Lyra, who was sitting beside him, her eyes focused on her mother. She didn't seem surprised by what her mother had just revealed, but there was a sadness in her expression. Jason had never seen her look like this before. It was like she was torn between two worlds, and he wasn't sure where he fit into it. "Is this true, Lyra?" Jason finally asked, his voice shaky. "Is this ... really a part of your people's prophecy?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, Jason. It's something I've known about for a long time, but I never thought it would involve you. I didn't want to tell you, because I didn't want to put any pressure on our friendship." Jason's heart sank. He had always believed that his friendship with Lyra was just that, a friendship. But now, it felt like it was something much larger, something that had been set in motion long before he even realized it. Queen Marisa spoke again, her voice calm yet filled with authority. "This prophecy has existed for centuries. It was written by our ancestors, who foresaw the day when a human and a Zalarian royal would come together to lead our people into a new era. The human, chosen by fate, would help guide the Zalarian royal to fulfill their destiny. It is a bond that goes beyond friendship, beyond simple companionship. It is a union that will shape the future of both of our worlds." Jason shook his head. "I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? I'm just a guy from Earth. I'm not even royalty. I don't have any special skills or powers." Queen Marisa smiled softly, her violet eyes shining with a knowing look. "You may not have powers like our people, Jason, but you possess something just as powerful: your heart. Your loyalty, your ability to connect with others. That is what makes you important. That is what makes you the key to this prophecy." Jason felt overwhelmed. He had never imagined that something like this would happen to him. His life had always been simple. He went to school, worked a regular job, and spent time with Lyra. Now it seemed like he was part of some ancient prophecy that could change the fate of two worlds. He didn't feel like he was ready for any of this. How could he be? He was just a human, nothing special. Lyra placed her hand on his arm, offering him a comforting smile. "You don't have to do anything right now, Jason. I'm here with you. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Jason looked at her, the girl who had become his closest friend, and he felt a mix of emotions. A part of him wanted to run away, to escape from the weight of the situation. But another part of him wanted to stay, to figure out what was really going on and why he was chosen. He had always trusted Lyra, and now, more than ever, he needed to trust her. Queen Marisa cleared her throat, bringing Jason back to the conversation. The prophecy speaks of a time when Zelaria would be at a crossroads, a time when our people would face a great challenge that could either lead us to a brighter future or destroy everything we've worked for. The human who bonds with the Zalarian royal will be the one who helps guide us through this challenge. That is why your connection with Lyra is so important. Jason was quiet for a moment, letting the words sink in. But what kind of challenge are we talking about? What's going to happen? Queen Marisa's expression grew more serious. There are forces within our own empire that do not agree with the prophecy. They do not want to see Zelaria change. They believe in maintaining the old ways, even if it means holding our people back. These factions will do everything in their power to stop the prophecy from being fulfilled. Jason's stomach churned. You mean someone's going to try to stop us? The queen nodded. Yes, there will be those who see your presence as a threat. They will try to undermine your connection with Lyra, even if it means resorting to drastic measures. Lyra's grip on Jason's arm tightened, and he could feel her anxiety. She had always been strong, always in control. But now, Jason could see the weight of the situation in her eyes. She was just as uncertain as he was. So what do we do? Jason asked, his voice more determined now.
Ow!
How do we stop them? Queen Marisa's smile returned, but this time it was filled with a sense of pride. That, Jason, is where you come in. Your bond with Lyra is the key to uniting our people. You will help her show the galaxy that change is not something to fear, but something to embrace. Together, you will be able to bring the galaxy into a new age. One where the old ways of division and distrust are replaced by unity and cooperation. Jason looked at Lyra, and for the first time, he saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She believed in him. She trusted him. And maybe, just maybe, he could do this. He could help her. He could help Zelaria. All right, Jason said, his voice steady now. Let's do this together. Lyra smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Jason. I knew you would understand. The queen nodded, pleased with Jason's response. Good. This is the first step. The path ahead will not be easy, but you are not alone. You have Lyra, and you have the support of the royal family, and most importantly, you have each other. Jason took a deep breath. He wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain: his life had changed forever. He had a role to play in something much bigger than himself. No matter how difficult the journey ahead would be, he was ready to face it. Together. Jason had never been so unsure in his life. The words that Queen Marisa had spoken kept repeating in his mind. Your connection with Lyra is the key. He wasn't sure if he was ready for the responsibility, but one thing was clear: his life and Lyra's would never be the same. The morning after their long conversation, Jason and Lyra walked through the palace gardens, trying to clear their minds. The air was fresh and smelled of flowers Jason had never seen before. The sky above was a bright blue, dotted with two suns, casting an unusual light over the landscape. It was beautiful, but it all felt so strange to Jason. Everything in Zelaria was so different, and now he knew that he was part of something much bigger than himself. So, what now? Jason asked, breaking the silence as they strolled down a path lined with tall trees that shimmered with blue leaves. What are we supposed to do next? Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she kept walking, her head slightly lowered. Lost in thought, Jason could tell that she was struggling too. This prophecy, this responsibility, it was a lot for both of them to handle. Finally, she stopped and turned to face him, her eyes filled with determination. I don't know, she said honestly, but we need to make a choice. We can't keep running away from it. Whatever this prophecy means, we have to face it together. Jason felt his heart race at her words. He had already agreed to stand by her side, but now, hearing her speak so seriously, the weight of the situation felt even heavier. I don't know if I can do this, Lyra, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just a guy from Earth. What do I know about royal prophecies or saving an entire planet?" Lyra smiled, her eyes softening as she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You may not know all the answers, Jason, but I believe in you. Been friends for so long. I've never had someone who's understood me like you do. Maybe that's why we're part of this prophecy. You're the one who can help me. You're the one who can show everyone that change is possible." Jason stared at her, feeling both comforted and overwhelmed. Her words meant a lot to him, but they also made the responsibility even more real. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the future of Zalarian, the future of his friendship with Lyra. "You don't have to do it alone," Jason said, taking a deep breath. "I'm here. Whatever happens, I'll stick by you. But I don't know if I'm ready to be part of this prophecy." Lyra's smile widened, and she pulled him into a quick hug. "We'll figure it out together. I don't know what the future holds either, but I know that I don't want to face it without you." Jason stood there for a moment, unsure of how to feel. He was still scared, but seeing Lyra so confident gave him a sense of peace. He hadn't expected this journey to be easy, but he was in it now, whether he was ready or not. As they continued walking, Lyra led him toward a large stone structure in the distance. It was a round building, its walls covered in strange glowing symbols that Jason didn't recognize. There were no windows, but the door was wide open, as if waiting for them. "This is the Hall of Prophecies," Lyra explained as they approached. "This is where the oldest knowledge of our people is kept. I think it's time you saw it. Maybe it will help us understand more about what's to come." Jason wasn't sure what to expect, but as they stepped inside, he was taken aback by the vastness of the room. The walls were lined with ancient scrolls and crystals, each one glowing softly, illuminating the dark space. In the center of the room stood a large stone tablet, covered in the same glowing symbols that adorned the outside of the building. Lyra walked up to the tablet and placed her hand on it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the symbols on the stone began to shift, forming new patterns. The tablet hummed with energy. Jason could feel the air in the room grow heavier. "This tablet holds the history of the prophecy," Lyra said quietly. "It's been passed down through generations of Zalarian royals. It's said that only those chosen by the prophecy can unlock its secrets." Jason stepped closer, watching in awe as the symbols continued to shift. He wasn't sure how, but he felt a strange connection to the tablet. He could feel the energy radiating from it, almost as if it was calling to him. "Should I touch it?" Jason asked, his voice uncertain. Lyra nodded. "I think it's time." Jason hesitated for a moment, then placed his hand on the tablet. The moment his fingers made contact, a wave of energy surged through him. His body tingled, and for a split second, he saw flashes of images, alien landscapes, battles between distant armies, and moments of peace. He saw Lyra standing beside him, her face filled with determination, as they led Zalaria into a new future. It was as if the tablet was showing him glimpses of what was to come. Then, just as quickly as it had started, the vision faded. Jason pulled his hand back, his heart racing. "What was that?" he asked, his voice shaking. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes. "That was the prophecy. The tablet has chosen you, Jason. You are part of this, just as I am. There's no turning back now." Jason felt a mix of emotions, fear, excitement, and even a bit of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: he couldn't walk away from this. He had made his decision. He was in it with Lyra, no matter what. "We're in this together," Jason said, his voice steady. Lyra smiled, her eyes bright with a mix of relief and determination. Together, as they stood there, the glowing symbols on the tablet slowly faded, leaving the room in silence. Jason knew that their journey had just begun, and though he didn't have all the answers, he was ready to face whatever came next. With Lyra by his side, he believed they could handle anything the universe threw their way. Jason's heart raced as he stared at the stone tablet in the Hall of Prophecies. The energy from it still lingered in his hands, a buzzing sensation that made him feel both alive and afraid. He had just seen something he couldn't explain. The images from the tablet flashed through his mind, Zalaria's landscapes, ancient battles, and the peaceful moments that followed. There was no denying it anymore. He wasn't just a human caught up in an alien world. He was a part of something much larger, something that would shape the future of two worlds. He turned to Lyra, who was standing quietly beside him. She had seen the same vision. She knew what it meant. And yet there was still so much they didn't. Understand so? What now? Jason asked, trying to steady his breath. His hands still tingled, and his thoughts raced. We know that we're part of some prophecy. But what are we supposed to do with it? How do we even start? Lyra looked at him, her gaze serious. I don't know, Jason. I've lived with this knowledge all my life, but I've never had to face it alone. I thought maybe it was just a story, something to keep the royal bloodline alive. But now with you here, it's real. We have to find a way to use this to help Zalaria. Jason sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I'm not a hero, Lyra. I don't know how to lead a planet. I don't know what it means to fulfill a prophecy. I don't either, Lyra replied softly, her voice filled with doubt. What? We can't turn back now. The tablet chose you. It's bond between us. It's part of the future. The future of both our worlds. Jason took a deep breath, looking around the hall. The symbols on the stone tablet had faded, but the weight of what they had just experienced was still heavy in the air. It was like the entire room was holding its breath, waiting for them to make a decision. You're right, Jason said quietly, his voice more certain than before. We can't turn back. We need to figure out what we're up against. We need to understand who or what is trying to stop this prophecy from coming true. Lyra nodded. I agree. We have to find out who's behind it. We can't just sit back and wait for things to unfold. We need to act. Jason felt a sense of clarity settle over him. He had been afraid of the unknown, but now he realized that running away was not an option. He wasn't just Lyra's friend anymore. He was part of her future, and that future would affect everyone, not just the Zalarian people, but Earth as well. The two planets were connected now, whether he was ready for it or not. Lyra stepped forward, reaching for his hand. I know. This is a lot to take in, she said softly. But you don't have to do it alone. We have each other and we'll figure this out together. No matter what happens, you're not in this by yourself. Jason looked down at their hands, feeling the warmth of her touch. He was still uncertain, but in that moment he knew that Lyra was right. He had to stand by her side. No matter what came next, they would face it together. All right, Jason said, his voice steady. Let's figure out what's happening and how we can stop whoever is trying to stop us. Lyra smiled, and for the first time in a long time, Jason felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't going to be easy. The road ahead was uncertain and filled with danger. But with Lyra by his side, he felt like they could face anything. They left the Hall of Prophecies and walked back through the palace gardens. The Zalarian sun shone brightly, casting long shadows over the paths. Jason couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though he saw no one in the gardens. The feeling of being followed, of being part of something that was bigger than anything he had ever imagined, was overwhelming. As they reached the palace entrance, they were met by a tall Zalarian soldier, his armor shining in the sunlight. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes that made Jason uneasy. Lyra, Jason the soldier said, bowing slightly. The Queen requests your presence immediately. Jason exchanged a glance with Lyra. He had been hoping for some time to prepare before meeting the Queen again, but it seemed that wasn't going to happen. Lyra nodded. Lead the way. They followed the soldier through the halls of the palace, which seemed even more intimidating now that Jason understood the importance of their visit. The walls felt like they were closing in on him, the air thick with tension. The Queen was not someone to be taken lightly. Jason could feel the weight of her authority and the pressure to make the right choices. When they entered the Queen's private chamber, she was seated at a large desk, studying a series of documents. Her gaze lifted when they entered, and she gestured for them to sit. I assume you've had time to reflect on everything. Queen Marisa said, her voice calm but firm. Jason nodded, but he couldn't find the right words. He was still processing everything, the prophecy, the visions, the responsibility. The prophecy is real, Lyra said, her voice steady. And Jason and I have decided to face it together. Queen Marisa's eyes softened, and she gave a small nod of approval. Good, I knew you would. But there's much more to this than you realize. There are forces at work within our empire that do not want this prophecy to come true. Hey, we must be prepared for what's to come. Jason leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. What forces? Who's trying to stop us? Queen Marisa's face darkened. There are factions within our government, as well as outside enemies, who believe the old ways must be maintained. They will not easily accept change. They will do whatever it takes to stop you from fulfilling your part in this prophecy. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but now the full weight of the situation was sinking in. They weren't just fighting for a prophecy, they were fighting for the future of both Zelaria and Earth. Then let's stop them, Jason said, his voice filled with determination. Queen Marisa's smile returned, a touch of pride in her eyes. That is exactly what we will do, together. Jason sat on the edge of the balcony, looking out over the vast landscape of Zelaria. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the crystal spires that stretched upward like giants. The air was still and calm, but Jason's mind was far from peaceful. He had never imagined he would be in a situation like this. Not long ago, he was just an ordinary guy, living a quiet life on Earth. Now he was part of an ancient prophecy. With the future of two worlds hanging in the balance. The responsibility felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders, and every day he spent on Zelaria, it grew harder to ignore. Lyra walked out onto the balcony, her footsteps soft against the stone floor. She stood beside him, gazing at the same view. But Jason could see the worry in her eyes. She had always been strong, always the one who kept things together. But now, with the pressure of the prophecy weighing on them both, she looked just as lost as he felt. I don't know if I can do this, Lyra, Jason admitted, his voice quiet. I don't know if I'm the right person for this prophecy. I'm just a human. I don't know how to save an entire planet. Lyra turned to him, her expression softening. I've known you for years, Jason. You're more than just a human. To me, you've always been there for me, always understood me in a way no one else has. That's why I believe you're the one who can help us. Jason met her gaze, searching her face for answers. Her words meant more to him than he could express, but the doubt still lingered. He had never been one to think of himself as a hero. He was just a guy who wanted to live his life peacefully. But now, that life seemed so far away. What if I fail? Jason asked, his voice filled with fear. What if I can't live up to the prophecy? What if everything we're trying to do just makes things worse? Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. We don't have all the answers, Jason, but we're in this together. I've spent my whole life knowing about the prophecy, but I never expected to find someone like you to help me. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. You're not alone in this. We'll face it together. Jason felt a sense of calm wash over him at her words. There was something about Lyra's presence that always made him feel like everything would be okay. They had been through so much together, and now they had to face the unknown. We'll face it together, Jason repeated, his voice steady. But we need to be ready for whatever comes next. We need to find out who's behind this and how we can stop them. Lyra nodded. You're right. There are still so many questions we need to answer, but the first step is to unite our people. We can't let fear control us. We have to show the galaxy that we're stronger together. Just then, the sound of footsteps interrupted their conversation. They both turned to see Queen Marisa approaching, her expression as regal and calm. As always, she stopped a few steps away, her eyes scanning them both as if she were reading their thoughts. I see you've come to a decision, Queen Marisa said, her voice soft but filled with authority. Jason stood up, his determination growing. Your Majesty, we're ready to do whatever it takes. Queen Marisa smiled, her eyes glinting with approval. Good, you've made the right choice, but there is one more thing you must know. The factions that oppose the prophecy will not back. down easily. They are powerful, and they will stop at nothing to prevent the change they fear. Jason's heart sank at the queen's words. He had known that their enemies would be dangerous, but hearing it from her made it feel all the more real.
Now what can we do to stop them?
There are many ways to fight, Queen Marisa said. But the most important thing is to unite the people of Zelaria. We must show them that change is not something to fear. If you and Lyra can lead them, you will have the support of the galaxy behind you. Jason exchanged a glance with Lyra. It seemed like an impossible task. They were just two people, and they were up against factions with unknown resources and power. But Jason knew that they couldn't give up now. Too much was at stake. "We'll do it," Jason said, his voice firm. "We'll fight for the future of Zelaria and Earth. But we need your help, Queen Marisa." "We can't do this alone." Queen Marisa nodded, her expression softening. "You will not be alone. I will help you, and so will the rest of the royal family. But you must be prepared. This will not be an easy journey. The road ahead will be long, and there will be sacrifices. But if you stay strong together, you can make this prophecy a reality." Jason took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. It felt like everything was happening so fast, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. But in that moment, with Lyra by his side and Queen Marisa's support, Jason knew that they had no choice but to move forward. "We'll be ready," Jason said, his voice full of resolve. "Together, we'll make this happen." Lyra smiled at him, her eyes shining with gratitude. Together, as the sun began to set behind them, casting a golden glow over the palace, Jason felt a sense of peace. The future was uncertain, and the path ahead was filled with danger. But for the first time since arriving on Zelaria, he felt ready. With Lyra and the Queen by his side, he knew that they had a chance. Together, they would face whatever came next, and together, they would fight for the future of two worlds.